Poke him. Later, you have other after. By Shabbos, there are 49 different types of action, or malachas that are forbidden. 49. Different malachas. Sewing, making a fire, all these things that are forbidden. One of them is Makir Patish, which means hitting with a hammer on the anvil. What is this Makir Patish referred to? It refers to when a craftsman creates something, makes a pair of shoes, or does anything, there is the last stroke that he says, okay, it's finished, it's done. That's called Makir Patish. This Makir Patish encompasses a whole slew of different activities, essentially the completion of something, the perfection of something. Perfecting meaning finishing one. Okay. So Makir Patish essentially means banging on the table. But when you bang on the table, after you finish the whole job. Don't bang on the table before you did the job. So after you did the job and you bring and you have something in your mind, then you start banging on the table again with the knee. Понимаю?
Понимаю.
Good. Хорошо. Okay. So you have Verbringen yesterday, I understand. Yeah. Who Verbringen with you yesterday? Private paper. All right. So surely you are quite well familiar with the reason for all of these Verbringings and all this celebration. with the great battle that the Frierdiker Rebbe had waged, had withstood, and that he actually won. The Frierdiker Rebbe beat a mighty, what's called a world power, superpower, a superpower. Frierdiker Rebbe beat a superpower. I'm sure I said he probably told you all the various details of religion, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was defined in the Soviet Union as the enemy number one, and all powers were focused on eliminating Ahmad Islam, the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Rebbe did not succumb, he did not bend. Not only did he not bend in terms of compromising his principles, but beyond his principles, he stood up to them in a manner of declaring, I am fighting you. I just hate you. Not in this many words, but in that type of declaration. He would not follow their directives, even when they were totally unrelated to religion. Like when they came to his cell, they wanted to relate to him something that occurred in the court, quote unquote. Conjugal court would be a compliment for them. Something that he needed to know about his sentence and all that. So now his sentence was lowered sequentially from capital Rahman Islam all the way to 10 years and to 3 years. And each time that his sentence was changed, they would enter his cell. I wanted to tell him what their conclusion is, so to speak. And the rule by them was that when these big shots come to give you and report to you something that pertains to you, you have to stand. So they came to the other and says, stand up. And he says, I'm not standing for anybody. Just like that, I'm not standing. So they said, so we'll beat you. So he said, it's not a joke. So they beat him. Can you imagine these barbarians? They actually hit the Rebbe with their fists. The Rebbe wouldn't budge. The Rebbe waged war against the entire phenomenon, the entire power, not just something pertains to his war, to his own operation. And when he came out and he was victorious, he actually subdued that monster. It wasn't just that his sentence was commuted. He subdued this monster. Despite that he suffered and so forth. And then subsequently he came out, and subsequently he was ordered to leave the country, and then ultimately he came to this country, and he brought light over here. So this is all history, important history. But we know that all our holidays, so to speak, when we celebrate a holiday, we do not celebrate a historical occurrence. Even the Gemara says, what's the point? Madahava hava, which means what happened, what was. How was it pertain now? Every day we have to do Avodas Hashem. Every day is a new day. We said Moedei Ani yesterday. Does that mean that today we don't have to say Moedei Ani yesterday all over again? You watch Negavasset again, you say Moidani again, you say all the brachas all over again. But I said it already. No, today you have to say it again because every day is a new world. There's a new way of doing the same thing that you did yesterday. Now it's done in a more profound way, more meaningful way. So we do not simply celebrate historical occurrences. When we celebrate a historical quote-unquote occurrence, it is due to the fact that it is valid today and it has its effect today. It's as if it happens now. It has the full impact as if it happens this moment. This is what the significance of celebration. But the Rebbe is not imprisoned. And the Soviet Union is no more. Communism is done with. Putin, you heard of Putin? Putin is the president and the premier and the secretary and so on and so on, and the boss of Russia. Putin was visited at Israel, and he came to the Kaisel Ma'arovi, and he prayed by the Kaisel. Sounds like a joke. Manilsa. Was?
He can do everything. For Muslim, Christian, doesn't matter who.
Doesn't matter who, that's right. But Putin should stand there by the Kaisel and speak about religion and about prayer, and I pray for you that you should be successful. That is a revolution more profound than the dismantling of communism.
Today different.
So this whole fight is no more, not there anymore. So what is the significance of us sitting in Beis Tamuz and commemorating the Beis Tamuz and celebrating? What in fact are we celebrating? How does it affect us? This is what we always focus on. How does it affect us? What does it mean to us? How does it translate in our own life and subsequently in our own avodah? And what does it obligate us to do? This should be the primary question in every adult's mind. Hashem gave us a Torah. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so what does that mean? Are you a participant? Does it have to do with you?
It's not a trick question, right?
I'm sorry?
It's not a trick question.
It's not a true question. It's not even a rhetorical question.
Okay.
It's a question that each one of us have to ask ourselves. I read up, listened to, people are talking very strongly about what's called special children with special needs. There are all kinds of different problems. Children don't develop normally, and there is one condition that's called autism. Every condition is really a crippling condition for a child, no matter what. And you have to try very much to help him to lead a normal life. And one is called autism. Autism is a very kind of evasive, that you can't tell anything on the surface. But in fact, in fact, the person is not fully there. It's a really very painful thing to watch. So somebody who's gotten involved in very deeply into this, studying it and all that, but describing certain aspects of an autistic child. He said that the autistic child is not stupid. He just does not realize any kind of meaning, background to what is happening on. He sees things exactly as they're happening. It's called square. He's very square, exactly as they happen. So he gave an example. One of the children in the house, in the home where they're taken care of, pulled the fire alarm. And the fire alarm went off. It was, it caused a lot of tumult, and people came running. Where's the fire? What's going on? Fire alarm. And the children around. You can imagine what the fire alarm would evoke. They found nothing happened. This boy pulled the fire alarm. So his mentor, the people who were taking care of him, there is no way that they can reprimand him for this. It would be the stupidest things for them to do. So they asked him, why'd you do that? So he said, because it says pull me. I hope none of us will respond to a sign, pull me. So therefore, I can ask a question, and we can relate to the question on a fundamental level, rather than, okay, why do I answer you? Just want to take a little analysis, so to speak, and understanding. What was the war that the Frierdiker Rebbe conducted, and what was the weapon that he used to fight this war? America, in the Second World War, towards the end of the Second World War, the development of atomic bomb was a race between America and Germany. God forbid, should Germany have developed the bomb first, that would be in the end. Baruch Hashem, that didn't happen. America developed the bomb first. And Germany folded. They still fought on, they still killed a few Jews, that was their greatest accomplishment, but that was it. They know that this is it. The stupid Japanese held out. They continued to fight. So of course we know that America dropped the bomb, 2 bombs, and that was the end of the war. So what did the war prove? That America had better bombs than the Japanese. In truth, however, if you examine a little bit the history, what was the condition of the world when the war started? The world wasn't prepared for war. America, for sure, didn't even expect to be in war. What was the power that brought about this victory? It was the human willpower, the dedication. People mobilized over here and started. Everybody was involved in building ships and building airplanes. Everybody was involved. This was, so to speak, a show of human force, and this is what brought about the victory. This is on a physical level. The Rebbe his victory was not on the physical level. The Rebbe fought the Soviet Union with the power of his soul, his neshama power. He subdued them simply with his spiritual power. And how was the soul involved in this? What was the Rebbe's crime, so to speak? What was the thing that they opposed? The statement that Yiddishkeit and Yid, this must survive. It's nothing to do with anything else. That the Jewish soul is something that nobody can tamper with, and every Jew has the strength and the power to stand up to any threat. The Frierdiker Rebbe used to send out emissaries, like we have shluchim today. Frierdiker Rebbe sent shluchim. And the shluchim then went what's called a Mesiras Nefesh, literally a Mesiras Nefesh. They were being sent out to some remote section of Russia in one little town to establish a cheder, to establish a little class for young children. And it was not uncommon. It was in fact very common that this shliach would never return. It was like sending somebody at the front lines. Would not return. Because he would be discovered, and the minute he was discovered, he would be picked up and sent away to Siberia, and in Siberia he would just expire. It was an impossible condition. And then immediately upon his arrest, somebody came to replace him. And the same story repeated itself. In other words, the power of the soul, of the neshama. This is what was proven on Yud Beis Tamuz. That the Yid has a power, a strength in his neshama that is invulnerable, that cannot possibly be subdued. This effect, bringing out this power of this neshama, this is the legacy, this is the accomplishment, this is the effect of Yud Beis Tamuz. It wasn't merely that the Rebbe came out and now he was able to build Yiddishkeit. It was to establish this fact. And this fact, this power, was then bestowed, no, you know, to every individual Yid. From then on, every Yid was given the strength to face down any opposition to his neshama, to Yiddishkeit. The Rebbe writes in the letter. Again, I'm sure that you were shown the letter by somebody mentioned to you the letter. When the Rebbe first came out, the Rebbe wrote a letter regarding Yud Beis Tamuz, Yud Beis Gimel Tamuz, and he wrote in this letter that this victory, where's your soul power?
It's there. Activated, energized, just ignited it. Sorry.
That this victory is not my personal victory. It wasn't I myself, I as an individual was redeemed from danger. But this is a victory for every individual Yid. And he describes over there several layers. Every Yid who values, to whom Torah and Mitzvahs is dear, to whom Yiddishkeit is dear. And then further down, he says to every Yid that he calls himself Jew, even if he doesn't have any practical connection to Yiddishkeit. But on one thing, that he declares himself as being a Jew, and he carries this title proudly, he also was redeemed in this victory. That's what the Rebbe writes. Which means, in a very simple and practical way, that this victory had given the strength and the bracha to every individual Yid, no matter what his level of practice is, to carry the mission of his neshama strongly and proudly under all circumstances. When in the 1960s, late 50s, 1960s, our Rebbe came out with the message that the world is now bent on tshuva, on coming back to Yiddishkeit. And this was a total prophecy, so to speak. Nobody recognized it. Nobody was able to really see what the Rebbe is talking about. And the Rebbe then said, go out and talk to people about Yiddishkeit, and you will see. And we did. It was an amazing thing. You go to university, people in the PhD program for physics, and overnight they become Balshu. Just like that. You know Yaakov Chanukah? You heard of Yaakov Chanukah? No. You heard of Encounter with Chabad? Encounter with Chabad, there's a yearly get-together.
1,000 encounters that they're with?
Well, every year there are a couple of encounters. Encounter with Chabad, this is an arrangement for students, university students and professors and different levels to get together and in a Chabad environment talk about Yiddishkeit. Uncle Chanukah was the one who arranged it, who initiated this first. Uncle Chanukah was in the PhD program of physics, I think University of Baltimore or in that area. And we came down there for a Shabbos. And he came along. He came here for Shabbos. Came into the Rebbe. Went into the Rebbe for Yechidus. You know nothing. And the Rebbe said to him, I think you should stay here for a year. I'm not kidding you. He came for a visit from the university to 7-7. After the Fabrengen, Sunday morning, they went to the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, I think you should stay here for a year. What did he do?
Of course he stayed.
He stayed here for a year. After the year, the Rebbe said to him, I think you should go back, finish your PhD. And he was telling me then, he says, I know, the Rebbe must know what he's doing. I don't think I'm ready. In any case, this is just a sample. But everybody experienced. You go in the street, I mean, now it's already a well-established thing, but going back in the 50s, you meet somebody in the middle of the street, stop him, and you say, are you Jewish? Who are you to ask me that question? Never happened. It did happen, but very rarely. Normally said, yes. As a matter of fact, I am Jewish. What about it? Well, I'd like you to put on tefillin. What's that? Never heard of it. Well, that's what a Jew is supposed to do. Oh yeah? How do you do it? This story repeated itself many, many times. How do you think it happened? There was no practical reason. There was no logical explanation for it. On the contrary, the university was teaching people just the opposite. Religion is a fantasy. The reality is, you see the physicality, and people would just go, because the Jewish soul was awakened. And no matter what they see elsewhere, you tell them, this is what, there's the Mendel Fotofass. You know, everybody heard of Mendel Fotofass? You know the story I'm referring to, that I want to mention now? Mendel Fotofass came out of Russia. He went through the whole Gulag. He came out of Russia, and he jumped into Mivtzoim right away. He didn't know the language. He didn't know English. So the story that I was told was that he was on a train, and there was a bocher also talking to somebody about it, putting on tefillin. And the man refused, didn't know what he did. So Mendel Fotofass walks up to him, and to explain to him what this is about, he says, I Jew, you Jew. I tefillin, you tefillin. And that's what happened. You put on tefillin. So, besides the historical effect and so forth, it is important, and this is the point of our talk always, to translate this to us individually. Okay, so we are here all putting on tefillin. Nobody here objects to putting on tefillin. This is only the surface. This is not the end. Putting on tefillin is very important. Tefillin is supposed to bring life to your brain, to your mind, and tefillin is supposed to bring light to your heart. Right? That's why we put on two pairs of tefillin, on the hand, facing the heart, and on the head, facing the brain. In other words, we put on tefillin, and this is a mitzvah, there's no question about it, but then we have to also personally relate to it. We have to live Yiddishkeit, not just perform Yiddishkeit. Living Yiddishkeit requires much more than knowing about it. It requires opening up and introspection. What introspection means? Introspection means, excuse me? Look inside yourself. To find what does it mean to me to be a Yid? What does it mean to me to believe in Hashem? Is there something in me that compels me, that makes me feel warm and good when I think of Hashem? Or does it make me feel, oh, I wish he'd leave me alone? What is it?
What?
Huh?
Does it make you feel what?
I wish he'd leave me alone. I want you to understand that to teach Yiddishkeit, the practical Yiddishkeit, even to teach Torah and to teach Chassidus and interpret and explain it, this can be done for you. The teacher can teach it to you. But to open yourselves up and to allow it to touch you personally, internally, this is something which nobody can do for you. We have today, in today's world, we have professors who are geniuses in terms of their brain power, literally genius. The amount of information that they retain is staggering. And you know something? As big as genius as they are, that deeply idiots are they. Total idiots. It's like this kid says, pull me, so I pull. Nothing has any meaning to them. On the contrary, they're the first one to dismantle any last vestige of neshama, of ruchnius, of meaning of life. Total idiots. We have to understand, we must not remain idiots while we're learning Torah. Which means that it's one thing to know what it says, it's another thing to have a personal understanding of this. When we learn in the Chumash, Bereshis bara Elokim et hashamayim v'ha'aretz. In the beginning, God created the Shemayim v'ha'aretz. God created Shemayim v'ha'aretz. Is this a piece of information, or is this something that we can relate to? Can we think of the world as a godly creation, personally? Or is this a piece of information? If somebody asks me, how did the world come to be? It depends who asks me. Or you, God created it. Or you, it was created by the Big Bang. Makes no difference. What is the difference? What is the difference? There has to be a personal related, personal difference. Excuse me?
Purpose?
Purpose, true. That's, so to speak, on a certain level we can see it. True. And there is greater depth and greater depth and greater depth to this. To give you a very simple illustration, it is a current challenge, a current view that that every person can develop in his own way, and he can define, so to speak, his lifestyle, quote unquote, in any which way that he wants, and it's all valid. Lifestyle is a personal choice. There is no true human being. He is what he makes of himself. Lifestyle. He can be a total perversion. And it's his choice. A world that was created by the Big Bang is a world that came from nowhere. It doesn't say anything. Its base is nothingness. So in nothingness I can do whatever I want. A world that came from godly creation. Everything in the world has a godly quality, a godly spark, godly meaning. Everything in the world, above everything else, supreme to all is the human being. The human being is a godly creation, so to speak, par excellence. This is actually what represents God in the world. And when he perverts his ways, he is dragging the godly spark in him into the abyss. He's destroying himself, destroying what he is. I want to discuss something very tangible, challenging, but very tangible and something that we can all relate to. The luminaries, the sun and the moon and the stars. As the Torah describes it, was created by God to give light to the world and to create day and night and to create months and to create years and so on, the whole system, cycle of the world. Now, we say in davening on Shabbos, we say that Hashem opens, Poseach, He opens the windows of the heavens and He brings forth the sun. This is how we describe in davening the phenomenon of the sun rising. Poseach Shioni opens the gateways. Moitzi Chamam in Komi draws the sun from its place, and the moon from its resting place. This is how we describe in davening the phenomenon of the sun rising. Now, looking at it physically, the way current thought is, science describes the whole phenomenon. There is no such thing as a sun rising from its resting place. The whole phenomenon of day and night is an accidental occurrence. There's a sun and there's the earth. The earth turns around its axis. As it turns, it faces the sun or it faces away from the sun. That's all it is. The fact that there is day and night, that's your definition. There's no, God never created day and night. It's not a creation. These are two views, two ways to look at the world. To look at the godly element of the world or at the physical element of the world. The godly element of the world, when the sun rises, what is the significance of that? That God brings day to the world. Because He created day and night. Beiri and Bolak. Day is one type of activity and night is another type. This is the way we look at the world. We look at the world from this perspective, that everything in the world represents a godly phenomenon. Day is a godly element. What is day? Day, during the day, this is how you serve God by day. This is how you serve God by night. when you look at the world from a physical, from a purely physical structure, there is no day, there is no night, there is no good, there is no evil. And ultimately, it translates in there is no human being, there is no animal. They're all animals. There's nothing. There's no significance to anything. Yud Beis Tamuz. Now listen carefully. Yud Beis Tamuz is when the Rebbe, with his neshama, with his soul power, fought off the onslaught on the Jewish neshama, so that each one of us has the full power to look at the world, and the physical world, and interpret it the way our neshama tells us to interpret it, rather than the way the physical group says. And live in the world according to these principles, unequivocally, without any apologies. He had freed the neshama so that we can actually live as human beings, as Jews. So that when day comes, we don't say, okay, this is the time that we're supposed to do this. No, this is not the time at all. This is a godly phenomenon. This day, it changes the whole thing. Now is the time for me to rise up. Because that's what day is about. Then there is Shabbos. Then Shabbos is a real day of Shabbos. It's not just count 7 days and it's a day of rest. It's part of the creation of the world. So this is the important point which I want, hopefully, at least to impress upon all of us, that we all have neshamas. We are not copying what other people do. We all have a neshama. And we all have an understanding and a relationship to Hashem and to the world that He created. And we are participants in it. So, the world tried to imprison our neshamas and to force us to see the world not from a neshama perspective, but from a physical, worldly perspective. And the Rebbe fought it off, and he gave us the opportunity and the freedom to live by our principles. Not just practically, but even to think by our principles. I hope I made myself clear. Label?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
It's not a circumstantial thing, it's an essential, self-essential thing, not space.
It means label. When you say they, it has a special meaning to you, personal. Because it's Hashem's creation. It's not the result of the sun. When you say Shabbos, oh, it's another day. It's one of the 7 days. Why not 7 days? Why not one of the thousands of days? And the same vein, but a much deeper, something that should touch us much more deeply. When we say, I believe in Hashem, what does that mean? What does that mean? I believe in Hashem. I believe Hashem created the world. Where do you get that belief from? What is it about? Did you ever see Hashem?
Something that comes from
Excuse me?
something that comes from above our heart.
That's right. But it has to be a personal thing, that's my point. Not, I'm supposed to believe. Not many people say, this is what I'm supposed to believe. Where am I? Belief is something which is an essential quality within the human soul. Like you said, it's an insight that's beyond the intellect. And Yud Beis Tamuz had provided all of us with the freedom to bring forth our true view from our own neshama, and to stand up and put on film in the middle of Times Square and not be phased at all. What are you doing? What do you mean what I'm doing? Putting on film. God said so. All right. L'chaim, l'chaim. I hope, Mitzvah Hashem, that each one of us here, in our experience here in the yeshiva, should successfully break through the shell, the hard shell of worldliness, and begin to experience the human quality, the human sensitivity. And come to life.
So, can you start?
Hmm?
Can you start? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ay, 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 ay,
really should talk about this much longer and for bring, but I have other duties.
We'll carry the torch, Rabbi.
Okay, good.
I think we can pull it off. We'll make the sacrifice.
Okay,
Seriously, it's all about that.
okay.
This is great.
Okay. So Levis, you're in charge.
Gosh, you.
You're in charge.
I thought it was like a team thing, kind of. I was going to defer to the old man.
No, you carry the torch.
I said, we'll carry the torch. I said,